To think. I could have gone and seen this instead of wasting money on Charlie's Angels. Sometimes I hate my job. Hello and welcome back to another movie review. As always, I am Kelly and I just got of Ford versus Ferrari. Okay, full disclosure, that title is very inaccurate to what this movie's actually about. Ford versus Ferrari is this kind of sort of in the background setup for why this is happening, but more or less this entire movie is about building a damn race car to beat the competition. It's about the building of that race car. There are races inside of it, but most of them are basically at the very beginning of the film and at the very end of the film. The middle, the majority of this film, like a good almost 2 hours of this, is about just building this car. Also, just gonna front load this first. Ford are technically the bad guys in this film. They're not the good guys, you know? It's more about how they keep getting in the way of making this awesome machine, mostly because corporate America really sucks and execs don't know what they're talking about, which, if you've ever worked for a business, you know exactly what that feels like. This movie was a great time, and it genuinely felt really good to watch. As someone who's stuck in one of those dead-end jobs, and in particular is dealing with a manager who does not know what they're talking about, to use the car metaphor, it's like someone insisting they know how to use a stick, but they're going to sit in there grinding your gears while telling you, no, I know how to do this, I know how to do this. And if you can't tell, this movie really resonated with me because of that. For those who don't want spoilers, as I said, this movie is a great watch. I highly recommend going to see this one in theaters. If this doesn't win at least a couple of Oscar nods, I will be genuinely surprised because it's just a great Oscar-type movie. But if you want to stay for more spoilers, let's actually start those off. And starting with a lot of the good, the first thing you're going to notice is the acting, because the acting in this is superb from pretty much everybody. But in particular, the big standout actor amongst all of this is Christian Bale. And by God, I mean, he's almost unrecognizable in this movie because of just how much he dived into the character. He really is this racer, Kim Miles, I believe his name was? My bad, it's Ken Miles. I'm not a racing enthusiast. I apologize that I don't know an iconic racer's name. But it's Ken, not Kim. But this is very unlike pretty much anything that Christian Bale has played before. This is just a down-to-earth guy who knows one thing: cars. And to kind of pander to those of us stuck in dead-end jobs at the moment, this movie opens with Christian Bale literally telling a guy to go fuck himself in the most, I want to say, British way possible. Because this guy bought a sports car and he keeps gumming up his shifting system because he doesn't know how to shift properly. And Christian Bale, the mechanic he keeps giving it to, is telling him flat out, look man, there's nothing wrong with your car. You just don't know how to shift gears. You're driving a sports car like it's a town car, and you're causing problems. At one point, even the customer yells back at him, you know the customer's always right, don't you? It's like, no, you're not. You're really not, but have fun. Every scene that Christian Bale is on screen, especially when he has to share it with Matt Damon, they just have great back and forth with each other. You can tell that these two are genuinely friends, and the writing is there to support them. And it never shows Ken Miles to be, a saint. In fact, a lot of the big problems with the movie come from the fact that he doesn't play well with others, and he kind of lets his mouth run a little bit too much. But the movie shows that you should actually do that a lot more, and I'll explain that a little bit more when I get into the actual plot of this movie. But it does show the problems that come from having that kind of loose-lipped mentality. And even Matt Damon as Carroll Shelby, he is genuinely kind of lost in this role. I do get some vibes similar-ish to, say, The Martian back there. Just kind of the overall charm of the guy. But I will also say that there's enough different from that kind of performance that this does stand on its own, and it's genuinely entertaining. And again, it never does showcase Carroll as a saint at all. I mean, the guy tries to sell the same car to 4 different people over the course of this movie. He is a bit of a con man in his own right, But at the same time, he is still a good person. But the other big thing, the big draw of this movie, other than the acting, is the plot itself. The plot itself, as I said, is about building this car, and you genuinely want to see them build this car that can beat Ferrari. Where they have to redesign the engine. They have to redesign how they fit the engine into the chassis. They've got to pull that engine out and basically throw in a bigger one on top of that. They've got to redesign the entire braking system and basically revolutionize how brakes are changed out in the middle of a race. Every step of building this car is genuinely engaging and fun to watch. And that includes the moments when Ford is fucking over its own team. Yeah, Ford are not the good guys inside of this, and I argue that they are the primary antagonists throughout all this. In particular, one of the executives at this company that just has a problem with Ken because Ken, again, told him that his 65 Mustang design that he headed was complete and utter garbage and was crap, which time basically vindicated Ken in that regard, just saying. You don't buy a 65 Mustang. You buy a 66, a 67, a 68, or a 69, not a 65. But this one exec keeps weaseling his way back into the project to basically screw them over. Again, a personal vendetta against Ken. He keeps pushing to pull Ken out of the car and replace him with another stock driver that they have. And when they finally show to Ford that was a bad idea and it cost them a big race in France, they finally get permission from Ford to put Ken back in the driver's seat and give Shelby more control, only to have this exec weasel his way back in again and try to derail everything once more. All the while, they are completely taking all of the credit for everything that this creative team is doing. This movie is basically a condemnation of how businesses are run in America, and it uses this race as basically the allegory for it. The committees, the multiple hands. At one point, Shelby points out that he's sitting in a waiting room and he tracked this one file while he was sitting there for hours, and it touched probably a dozen hands before it even reached him, and that's not even including the hands that probably went through on all of the floors below that he didn't see. There's just way too much of this push and pull. You gotta trust one guy to give you something. And in the end, they won Le Mans. And according to the thing at the end, they won it 4 years in a row. This movie is really a testament to being creative, to going outside the box and not listening to what corporate marketing teams have to tell you is the right way to do it, because they're wrong. They are always wrong. Their focus groups are wrong. And the movie really does show what happens when people stick to the guns and can work through all of that bullshit and can come out on top. And I'll end the good section by just saying that while this movie wasn't, a sport racing movie, it's no red line back there where, the races are the everything. The races that they do have in here and how they're shot are genuinely gripping. You are on the edge of your seat, even if you can't necessarily tell what the track looks like from, the driver's perspective, like you can in better racing movies. But with that said, I can think of a couple things that don't necessarily work. And one of the things is, this movie does feel like there's a little bit of revisionist history attached to it. Yes, this is technically a biopic. Yes, it's a film. You can't ever actually recreate anything perfectly, blah, blah, blah. All the same arguments that come with this. I heard all of those in Bohemian Rhapsody. I don't need to hear them here. What I mean by revisionist history is this seems to have the similar-ish problem that, say, Straight Outta Compton did, where it feels like they're trying to possibly portray Shelby and Ken as a little bit more saintly than they probably actually were, and Ford to be a little bit more evil than it might be. In particular, this comes off a lot with Carroll Shelby, because I said, at the beginning, they show him as a bit of a con man. He sells the same car to 3 different people and basically tells his team, make sure he doesn't leave that car because we got to make sure that we don't accidentally give it to him and not to the other people we've already sold it to. Again, he's a bit of a con man, but by the end of it, again, he's the hero that we're supposed to be kind of rooting for, him and Ken. So, was he good or bad? They show that those aspects of him would allow him to get around this stupid exec that keeps trying to stonewall him. At one point, he literally locks the exec in his office and tells everyone, make sure he doesn't leave while I do this. Again, it's a great scene that shows that he's trying to work around a guy who's trying to derail the project, but at the same time, I have to go on the side of maybe there's a reason that they didn't want Ken on there. Maybe there is a reason that these execs had, reason to hate him. In the film, it's pretty clear that it's just a personal grudge that this exec will not let go. But in real life, again, it's kind of like how in Straight Outta Compton, pretty much everything bad that happened with NWA was basically Eazy-E's fault, and Dre and Ice Cube were shown as either just reluctant partners or absolute heroes. Ice Cube in particular came off as a little bit too much of a good guy in that movie. Just saying. I feel the same thing's happening here. Maybe to a lot lesser extent because, again, evil corporations, they do think like this and they do act like this. We have multitudes of stories you can possibly look at to see just this kind of thing, especially in the car industry. I can't help but feel that I'm getting a little bit of polished fool's gold look onto it rather than actual gold, if you know what I mean. And honestly, I thought there'd be a little bit more on the negative side, but I can't think of anything. I sat here like 10 minutes between cuts trying to think of anything because this movie is just a genuinely good time. The production is all there. The cars and the races that they do have do look great. They have a lot of good elements inside of it. The bad guys are genuinely bad, and you want to hate them and see them lose. And ultimately, what happens at the end, well, if you know the history of Ken and Le Mans, I mean, it shouldn't be any surprise. But at the same time, I just feel that I'm at a loss for anything negative to say about this. This is probably just the most best good I've seen pushed out on the screen. I had more negatives about Dr. Sleep, and that's on my best list for sure. So I guess this is on my best list too. And honestly, you should go see it. My final verdict on this one is must see. This is the real first Oscar bait moon that I can say wholeheartedly is double thumbs up. You should go see it immediately. You will not be disappointed. And yeah, that's it for me. Did you enjoy the video? Have you seen Ford v Ferrari? Leave what you think about the movie in the comments down below. Let's see if we can get some healthy discussion going. If you liked what you saw, be sure to hit the like, share, subscribe, all that jazz. Leave a comment. All of those actions help this channel grow and get promoted by the algorithm, which seems hell-bent on keeping all the smaller channels pushed down as far as they can. Also, if you do subscribe, hit that bell for notifications because I do stream pretty much weekly every Thursday night at 11 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. I won't be able to do that this coming Thanksgiving Thursday because I'm going to be at work. Black Friday, I work retail. That's pretty much a given. I'll be there probably until 2 or 3 in the morning, so that's probably a no-go. Just going to point that out there right now. But pretty consistently, Thursdays, 11 p.m. Mountain Standard Time. Hit the notification bell so that you're aware when we go live. And yeah, that's it for me, so I guess I'll see you all next time.